When my daughter got married, I hid the fact that I inherited $9 million from her grandfather. Thank God I didn't say anything because after the wedding, her husband showed up with a notary. My father died in March. Heart gave out in his sleep, no warning. We hadn't been close in years. He wanted me to run his business. I wanted to teach shop class, and somewhere along the way we just stopped calling. So when the lawyer told me he'd left me everything, the house, the accounts, all of it, I sat in that office and asked him to repeat the number twice, just over $9 million. I didn't tell anyone, not my ex-wife, not my friends, and especially not my daughter Emma, who was 4 months out from her wedding. I told myself it was temporary. I just needed time to think before the money changed how people looked at me. Emma had been with Josh for almost 2 years by then. Good haircut, good handshake, always complimenting my truck. He asked me once, early on, over a beer on my porch, whether my dad and I were close, whether I ever talked about family money. I laughed it off. He nodded slowly and changed the subject, but he circled back to it a month later, wrapped inside a question about Emma's college fund. I told myself I was being paranoid. Young guy planning a wedding naturally thinks about money, but once you notice a pattern, you can't stop seeing it. The wedding was in June. Beautiful day. Emma looked just like her mother did 30 years ago. During his toast, Josh talked about building a secure future together and making smart decisions as a family, not love, not partnership, numbers. A few people laughed politely. I clapped along, but underneath it I felt that same cold feeling from the porch. After the honeymoon, something shifted. Josh started calling me directly, not Emma, me, asking if I wanted to grab lunch, offering to fix my gutters, things he had zero interest in before the wedding, always circling back to the same question, dressed up different ways. How was I doing financially since retirement? Had I thought about consolidating my accounts so they were easier to track? I taught high school for 30 years. You learn fast how to spot a kid buttering you up before asking for something bigger. So I called an old friend, Sam, who did background work on the side. Told him everything. He pulled up my father's probate filing in 15 minutes at his own kitchen table. Public record. Anyone can search it. Then he asked when Josh had proposed. I told him. He cross-referenced it against the filing date. My father died in March. The estate went public record in early April. Josh proposed the second week of April. Sam looked at me and said, "Frank, I think you need to ask yourself if this was ever really about your daughter." I needed real proof before I said a word to anyone. Sam dug deeper. Took 2 weeks. Josh had been engaged once before, to a woman whose family owned a chain of businesses. That engagement ended 8 months in, right around when her father sold the company. No lawsuit, no drama, just a quiet breakup once the money situation changed. Same pattern in his job history. 3 sales positions in 5 years, each ending not long after he'd gotten close to a wealthier client's finances. One job ended after he got himself added as an authorized user on a client's account. Nothing criminal, but the same picture, over and over. About 3 weeks after the honeymoon, Josh called and said he wanted to stop by with some paperwork. Saturday morning, he pulls into my driveway with a folder under his arm and a woman I didn't recognize. "This is Karen," he said. "She's a notary." My stomach dropped the second I saw her lanyard. He sat at my kitchen table and explained it as a family protection plan, a document that would let him serve as a secondary authorized contact on my accounts in case anything happened to me. He even brought up my father's sudden death as an example, gentle, like he was worried about my health. Karen sat quietly at the end of the table with her stamp, waiting for a signature. I looked at the folder for a long moment. Then I looked up at Josh and asked him calmly if he wanted to know how I found out about his first engagement. His face changed instantly. The polish cracked right off him. I laid it out. The probate timeline, the engagement that ended when the money situation changed, the authorized user situation that got him fired. No yelling, just facts, one after another. The way I used to explain a problem to a slow student. Karen sat frozen, clearly realizing this wasn't the routine signing she'd been called in for. Josh tried to recover, said I was misunderstanding, that any reasonable person plans ahead. I let him talk for almost a full minute so he could hear how thin it sounded out loud. Then I slid the folder back across the table, unsigned. Emma's going to hear every word of this from me before the end of the week, I told him. Karen gathered her things and left without a word. Josh stayed a few minutes longer, alternating between anger and backpedaling, telling me I was going to destroy his marriage over assumptions. I called Emma that afternoon and asked her to come by without Josh. Sat her down at the same table, made her coffee the way she'd always liked it, and told her everything, starting with the $9 million, ending with the notary who'd been in that